Black Clover Chapter 361 begins with Yuno getting the dub.
So that was a lie.
Bro actually thought he was the main character for a minute. Even after Yuno used literally every last drop of power he had to defeat Lucius, it's no use. Because suddenly, a brand new Lucius has entered the chat and hit Yuno with a surprise attack. So what's happening right now? Because as Yuno states, the dead Lucius is Lucius's real body, but now so is the new one? How can there possibly be two Lucius at once? Well, luckily for Yuno, there isn't. There's hundreds. Because Lucius has access to his siblings' blood, bone, and body magic in tandem with his own soul magic, he's able to create a perfect replica clone of himself. This correlates with his goal in the story too, as remember, Lucius's entire mission is to recreate humanity with perfect undying bodies. To do so, he will have to create new ones, which is exactly what he's done to himself in this chapter. But what's truly terrifying is that every one of his clones have their own grimoire, meaning he clones those too, which makes sense when you remember that the grimoire is intrinsically linked to the user's soul. And what magic does Lucius have again? That's right, soul magic. He claims that even if he can't foresee the current future because Asta's gone and ballsed it all up for him, he will still become the ultimate wizard king, no problem, as his plan is flawless. That being said, if this entire time he could just create clones of himself, then like, what was the need really to send Sister Lily and the other paladins to the land of Sun when he could have just sent himself?
That's just lazy writing.
Clearly, there's going to be some major drawback to these clones, which we'll see later on down the line as our heroes continue to struggle in this war. Because as we can see, entire chunks of the kingdom begin to rise from the ground before the citizens can even evacuate properly, which is the first time we've really seen Lucius properly utilizing Lucifer's gravity magic since devouring his heart. Meanwhile, the real Lucius is chilling on his throne like the king he is in his base above the Clover Kingdom. That's right, he's been there the entire time, which got me thinking, why? Well, firstly, it could just be a sign of pure disrespect that Yuno ain't worth a visit in person, or perhaps it's the opposite and he's actually too afraid that he's gonna lose. Or maybe he can't.
What do you mean by that?
Everybody cast your minds back to Zenon's backstory where Lucius is first revealed. Every time we saw this younger version of him, he was bound to a wheelchair. Now, Tabata is still yet to explain, 1, why he was in a wheelchair altogether, and 2, why he's no longer in a wheelchair. Now, this of course is all done on purpose, as one doesn't just accidentally draw a disabled person, do they? It also fits into Lucius's reasoning for doing what he's doing. He wants to create perfect, equal bodies for everyone. Thus, it would make sense that his motivation stems from his own personal problems of feeling excluded from society due to his condition, similar to how Asta wants to become Wizard King to abolish classism because of how he was picked on. However, fast forward to the modern day and Lucius seemed to just be fine? Well, that's the thing. What if he isn't? Yes, Julius may have been completely fine, but it was established by William and Patry that what affects one soul does not affect the other. For example, William had the scar on his head, but in spite of that, when Patry's soul took over against Julius and every other time, the scar faded away and it had nothing to do with him. And so, after Lucius took over Julius's body again in chapter 331, he made himself into a paladin as he had Astaroth this entire time. Lucius Zagratis has developed a method of using his soul magic to purify devils and their power, thereby creating a holy power and to incarnate those devils in humans, transforming them into new life forms which he calls paladins. And so he himself is one to flex that ability to begin with, but to also fix his disability, just like he did with Morris by fixing all of his problems. Still couldn't fix him into becoming a good villain though, could he?
He's got a point.
However, there is one other reason though why Lucius is being bound to his throne, and that's because it's the only way he can use his siblings' magic. We see Zenon, Dante, and Vanica all inside a cocoon that is attached to Lucius's throne, which just so happens to have 3 crosses on it, which is significant. We already know that Lucius is a false prophet who thinks he has a divine gift. Morris reinforced this idea in chapter 344 by stroking his ego and calling him a god. The idea of an Antichrist is associated with Abrahamic religion, from which Tabata draws his inspiration from. However, if Lucius really wants to be Jesus that badly, he's gonna need his own Judas, and I believe that to be the Dark Triad. It's fair to assume that during his rebirth of humanity, Lucius will include his siblings in that, as he promised them in chapter 310. That being said, when they do return, they will ultimately betray their older brother. After their big climactic fights in the Spade arc, each one of them have been mentally persuaded by their opponents who opposed their own beliefs. The true idea of good-natured humans is what Asta mentioned to Dante. Asta's words, along with the fact that Magna of all people made himself Dante's equal in their battle despite being 500 times weaker than him, ultimately killed him, which will change his perspective. Dante will reawaken and, for the first time, think of himself, realizing that Asta was correct about the good nature of humans when he sees what his brother has become and how he manipulated him. Meanwhile, with Vaneka's death, she declared Noel her rival and her first friend. I mean, she literally orgasmed from their fight. Once she comes back and sees Noel again, she will have a change of heart. As we're told in the manga, that love is the strongest emotion and driving force behind everything. It's the reason that Liber could manifest anti-magic as he wanted revenge for the Lucita. It's the reason Noel pushes on, and also why Yuno broke Lucius's expectations in chapter 360 due to his rivalry with Asta. Lastly, Zenon, well, he's the most obvious. He will see Asta and Yuno's relationship and be reminded of him and Alan. We saw in chapter 307 when Zenon obtained a devil's heart that he still has memory of Alan, and that's what motivates him. Black Clover has established itself as a story illustrating how the choices you make affect those around you. We know more than anyone that Asta has influenced people to the point where the choices they make can't even be witnessed with future sight. They all become stronger and better people because of it. Yuno said in his battle with Zenon that he will prove that the choices he made were the correct ones. This is because Zenon made a bad decision when he joined Lucius following Alan's death. But it won't be too late for him to make the correct decision after being influenced by Asta. This will resonate with him and make him realize that it was Lucius all along who was the one responsible for killing Alan and sending him down the wrong path. Thus, he will want to protect both Asta and Yuno so that his brother cannot ruin their hopes and dreams of succeeding like he has done once already. Once Lucius gets what he rightfully deserves, they will eventually get the opportunity to have a brother who loves them when Julius takes full control of his body again. Meanwhile, the rest of the Clover Kingdom watch on in awe as they realize they're about to get cooked. Because remember, Yuno stated in chapter 360 that he can't keep going much longer with his Neverland spell. That's the whole reason he's been able to stand up against Lucius before now, as it's the spell that completely goes against him, just like Asta. It's why Lucius knew he had to get rid of Yuno in chapter 336. But it's thanks to the Neverland spell that the other Magic Knights were able to fend for themselves against the Paladins and Angels. But that's about to wear off, leaving every single person in the entire country powerless before the army of Lucius. Even Noel and Siscolion are currently boosted. It's the only reason they can fight. Additionally, once Neverland is over, Lucius can use his time magic again. And so, in short, they're all screwed.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
Think about it. Lucius's clone alone should be scaling 4 times that of Lucifero that faced him in the previous arc, as he was only 50% manifested. But the Lucius that Yuno has defeated by slim margins took on 100% of Lucifero, 100% of Astaroth, and has his own busted soul magic. The only reason Yuno was able to win was because of the new Neverland spell, and with his feat of killing one Lucius clone, he already scales at a minimum hundreds of times higher than any other Magic Knight. Once his spell's done, against all the clones that are in front of him, it's GG. No other character in this series scales even close to that, unless their savior is on the way, because we finally see what the Black Balls have been up to this entire time, as they've been on an Elf Saga tribute tour. That's right. First, we had Noel visiting the Seafloor Temple, and now the others have gone to the Witch's Forest to seek the Queen's help. All we need now is the Diamond Kingdom. Yeah, remember them? Nah. Me neither. Anyway, the Witch Queen anticipated the arrival of the Black Bulls following Asta's death, which is when it's revealed to them all that he's alive. That's it. That's the reveal. Listen, alright? I understand that we all knew he was alive and that they had a feeling he was still alive, and the two main ones whose reactions will be biggest seeing him again aren't there in Yami and Noelle, but still, this is all the reaction we get? We don't even get to see what their facial expressions are like when they get the news? Come on. Regardless, Dorothy then makes her presence known, who realizes that in order to defeat Lucius, the main protagonist would probably help. And so, with her, the Queen, and Vanessa working together, the three greatest witches of all time, they can achieve anything. As long as they have a spatial magic user, that is, kind of helps, I suppose. They all chuck Finral into what looks like a sacrificial circle and focus their magic onto him to create the magic door of destiny, all so that they can bring Asta home. And once again, Tabata has been heavily inspired by Greek mythology to create his characters here, as each of the three witches represent the three fates, aka Moirai. They were divinities that presided over human life, representing the inescapable destiny of humanity. Their names were Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. Clotho, or in this case Vanessa, spun the thread of human fate. Lachesis dispensed it, which in this case would be Dorothy as she began the ritual, and then finally the Witch Queen, aka Atropos, cut the thread, thus determining the individual's moment of death. This makes sense when you remember that the Witch Queen also has future sight that can foresee what fate has in store for people. There is still one slight little issue here though. Asta defies destiny and fate, right? That's like his entire character within Black Clover's world. He is the flaw, the anomaly. This is why Lucius can't see his future, and even more relevant, as far back as the Witch's Forest arc itself, the Witch Queen tells Asta that his fate is to sacrifice his friends to save his arms, yet that never happens. He defied fate over and over again. He is not bound by some outside destiny. As soon as he arrived to the Witch's Forest, the Queen admitted that the fate she saw had been changed. So if he is in fact beyond their powers, can they really find him that easily? Or will everything go horribly wrong? Tabata may actually be cooking up a chapter 331 level plot twist right now, ladies and gentlemen, making us think that Asta's about to turn up and save the day, when in fact Lucius is about to win and Asta will be too late. Now, if you want to learn every instance that Asta changed the timeline, you must watch this video on your screen right now to understand how he is just built different.